David Hume's The Natural History of Religion, published in 1757, is a groundbreaking work that seeks to explain the origins and development of religious belief from a psychological and historical perspective. Rather than engaging in a theological debate over the truth of religious claims, Hume investigates why humans believe in gods at all. He argues that religion arises not from divine revelation or even rational inquiry, but instead comes from human emotions, things like fear and our sort of cognitive tendencies and so on. So through this exploration, Hume offers a skeptical analysis of religious evolution, suggesting that polytheism was the first form of religion, while monotheism developed later due to social and political factors. He also critiques the corrupting influence of institutional religion, arguing that it often fosters superstition, intolerance, and moral corruption. So this video will attempt to explore Hume's central arguments, his critique of religious belief, and the broader implications of his work for the Enlightenment thought and, the secular study of religion. So Hume begins his investigation by examining the psychological roots of religious belief. He argues that human beings are naturally inclined to infer the presence of intentional agents behind, the events that they don't understand. And this tendency stems from two fundamental factors: fear and uncertainty, and anthropomorphic projection. I always struggle to say that word. So, for Hume, the primary driver of religious belief is human anxiety about the unknown. Early humans, obviously lacking scientific knowledge, faced a world filled with natural disasters, diseases, and death. The randomness and unpredictability of these events caused or created a deep sense of vulnerability. In response, humans sought explanations and, more importantly, means of control. They begin to attribute these phenomena to the actions of supernatural beings who controlled nature. By performing rituals, offering sacrifices, and praying, people believed that they could appease these beings and secure their own safety. And this theory positions religion as a psychological coping mechanism, rather than the product of a divine revelation or even rational reflection. So unlike the rationalistic arguments for God found in classical theology, Hume suggests that religious belief is driven by emotion rather than reason. And this idea aligns with later anthropological and psychological theories, such as Freud's view that religion functions as a way to manage existential anxiety. Another key psychological mechanism behind religious belief, according to Hume, is the anthropomorphism, the human tendency to project their own qualities onto external forces. Since humans experience the world through the lens of their own consciousness, we instinctively attribute intelligence, emotions, and intentions to non-human entities. And this, for Hume, explains why early religious beliefs often depict gods as behaving like humans. They're jealous, they're loving, they're wrathful or merciful. And Hume sees this tendency as a reflection of human nature rather than evidence of divine reality. The gods of ancient religions are often little more than magnified human figures, embodying the traits of their worshippers. One of Hume's most significant claims is that polytheism is the original form of religion, while monotheism is a later development. And he challenges the common assumption held by many theologians that monotheism represents a purer or sort of like more advanced form of religious belief. So Hume argues that the earliest religious beliefs were polytheistic. Primitive humans, attempting to make sense of the world, attributed different aspects of nature to different gods. There were gods of war, fertility, agriculture, the sea, and so on and so forth, each responsible for a specific domain. And this fragmentation of divine power reflects the way humans experience the world as a collection of distinct forces rather than a unified whole. Polytheism, Hume notes, tends to be more tolerant than monotheism. Since multiple gods exist, different religious traditions can coexist without conflict. There is no single truth to impose on others. This contrasts quite dramatically, in fact, with monotheistic religions, which often claim exclusive access to truth and, as a result, foster religious intolerance. So Hume suggests that monotheism didn't emerge from rational arguments, but from social and political factors. As societies became more centralized, religious beliefs evolved to mirror political structures. Just as kingdoms had a single ruler, religion began to focus on a single supreme deity. Over time, monotheism became dominant because it provided ideological unity, reinforcing the authority of kings and religious leaders. However, Hume critiques monotheism for fostering fanaticism and intolerance. Unlike polytheism, which allows for a diversity of beliefs, monotheism insists on a single truth. And this has historically led to persecution, religious wars, inquisitions, and so on, as monotheistic religions seek to eliminate competing views. But Hume goes beyond merely explaining the origins of religion. He also critiques its effects on society. He argues that institutionalized religion, particularly in its sort of monotheistic form, often corrupts rather than improves morality. And Hume contrasts religious superstition with true morality. He argues that religion often promotes irrational and arbitrary rules rather than genuine ethical principles. Many religious practices, such as ritual sacrifices, strict dietary laws, or prescribed prayers, have no intrinsic moral value. Instead, they serve only to reinforce priestly authority. By focusing on ritual obedience rather than ethical reasoning, religion can divert people from developing a truly moral character. Hume suggests that true morality is secular and based on reason. Ethical behaviour should be guided by principles of human well-being and social harmony rather than fear of divine punishment. A major theme in the natural history of religion is the role of religious leaders in shaping and maintaining belief. Hume argues that priests and clergy manipulate religious fear to maintain their own power. By emphasizing divine wrath and the need for religious rituals, they keep the population obedient. And this cynical view of religious institutions aligns with the Enlightenment critiques of the church, which saw it as an instrument of social control rather than a source of truth. One of Hume's most controversial claims is that monotheism, in particular, leads to intolerance and violence. Since monotheistic religions claim exclusive access to divine truth, they are much more likely to engage in persecution. The history of religious wars, inquisitions, and forced conversions, Hume suggests, is a direct consequence of monotheistic exclusivism. By contrast, polytheism, which allows for multiple gods, tends to be more tolerant. In a polytheistic society, the existence of different religious traditions is both expected and accepted. So this leads Hume to a provocative conclusion. Monotheism, rather than being morally superior, is often more dangerous than polytheism. Hume's Natural History of Museum. Why did I say that? Hume's Natural History of Religion fits with the broader Enlightenment critique of religious beliefs. It challenges traditional theological claims by showing that religion is a human invention, shaped by psychological, social, and political forces. And his work has several key implications. The first of those being undermining natural theology. So by explaining religious belief as a natural phenomenon, Hume weakens the traditional arguments for God's existence. If religion arises from fear and habit rather than divine revelation, its claims become, to say the least, suspect. The second sort of key implication is promoting secular morality. So Hume argues that morality should be based on human reason rather than religious dogma. Ethical principles should emerge from human experience and not divine command. And the final sort of key implication that we're going to look at is advancing religious, advocating religious tolerance. I can't speak today. So by exposing the dangers of monotheistic fanaticism, Hume's work supports religious pluralism and freedom of thought. So that is quite a quick, actually, run through roughly of Hume's natural history of religion. And in that work, David Hume offers a revolutionary account of religious belief. So rather than treating religion as divinely inspired or rationally justified, he explains it as a natural, psychological, and cultural phenomenon. His argument that religion arises from fear and anthropomorphism and social conditioning challenges traditional theological views and anticipates modern secular approaches to religious studies. Also, his critique of monotheism's tendency towards intolerance remains really quite relevant today. So by shifting the discussion from theology to anthropology and psychology, Hume laid the foundation for a scientific study of religion, one that continues to shape philosophical and sociological debates. So that is my attempt at a brief explanation of Hume's natural history of religion, and I hope you found it interesting. And if you haven't read it, then please go and read it, because this was a really quick and dirty, you could say, run through of the ideas, but there's so much more to it. There's so much more depth to it than I could share in 10 minutes or whatever it is. So if you have if you haven't already, I strongly suggest that you grab yourself a copy. You can go on Amazon, dirt cheap, £6 or £7, something like that, or go to your local library, whatever. But this, it's a pretty common book, so I strongly suggest that you go and read it if you have the opportunity to do so. And one final thing, not really relating to that, is that as you've got this far to the end, I would like to ask if you could do all the YouTube things, like the video, subscribe to the channel and all that sort of stuff. That would really help me out, but also it sends YouTube a message to let them know that you are interested in these topics, in these subjects, and that you would like to hear more. And YouTube will not only show you more of me, but more importantly, it will show you other creators talking about these things as well, which means that you don't get pinned down by any one specific interpretation, enabling you to think more critically about these ideas. So thank you very much for your time today, and I very much look forward to seeing you on the next one. Goodbye.